Tonight on Mississippi Insight, the two men running for Mississippi governor.
What I'm trying to do over the next 6 weeks is earn the support of every single Mississippian.
We're at a corner post in our state. We can either keep doing what we're doing, and it's not working, our economy growing at 2%, or we can invest in our kids and our people and make a difference in our state.
Tonight, Jim Hood and Tate Reeves on the issues on a special edition of Mississippi Insight. Hello and welcome to Mississippi Insight. I'm Byron Brown, and thank you for joining us. Election Day may be 6 weeks away, but we are less than 2 weeks from the first and up to now only debate featuring both Jim Hood and Tate Reeves. This week we spoke with both candidates, and we start with the Republican Lieutenant Governor who recently joined us in studio. Lieutenant Governor, talk to me about what's the difference between you and your opponent? What differentiates the two of you?
Well, there's major differences between the Democrat nominee for governor in this state and myself. I have a long record of conservative leadership in Mississippi. My opponent is a liberal Democrat who would really like to tax and spend. He wants to take us back. We want to move us forward to a better Mississippi. My opponent has said repeatedly that he believes Mississippi's best days were in the early 1980s. He would take us back to that time. I believe our best days are ahead of us. And so I want to provide solutions for conservative leadership that's going to meet Mississippi's challenges because I have 3 little girls, 114, 112, and 17, and I want them to have the same opportunities that I have.
You had a hard-fought primary with Justice Waller and Foster. Did that help or hurt you in this process of trying to be governor?
Well, I believe competition is good. You know, you've heard me say this many times throughout this campaign. No one is entitled to anything. No one was entitled to be the Republican nominee. Every candidate that ran worked very, very hard, and I think that's good for our party long term. If you really look at what's transpired this year, it's been a great year for Republicans in Mississippi. Prior to 2019, Republicans never had a vote in the primary that was greater than what the Democrats did. This year, we voted over 100,000 more Republicans in the primary than what the other party voted, and that's because conservatives in Mississippi are excited. They want to continue a pathway of conservative leadership, moving our state out of our challenges, and so I think overall that the primary was helpful. I believe competition is good, and what I've tried to do over the last 6 months or so, and what I'm trying to do over the next 6 weeks, is earn the support of every single Mississippian. I don't care where you live, I don't care where you come from, I don't even care what your political affiliation is. If you want a forward-looking conservative to lead Mississippi, I ask for your vote.
You didn't get the endorsement of Justice Waller. What does that mean? What do you have to do to get those votes? Well,
and that's just it. I think that Justice Waller ran a hard campaign. It was a contested campaign, and we differed on some very important issues in that campaign. But the reality is, I'm not going to look towards the past. I'm looking towards the future. My job over the next 6 weeks is to go talk to every single Mississippian that I possibly can. Literally, I'm hoping that we'll have 700,000, 800,000, 900,000 Mississippians vote in this election for governor because it's that important. And I'm going to try to earn the vote of every single Mississippian and ultimately earn the endorsement of every single Mississippian that I can talk to. I know there's a lot of talk about this battle for this vote here could be those votes from Justice Waller, where they go, whether they go to you or whether they go to the Attorney General Hood. That might be where the battle is. How do you see that? Well, I think there's a battle out there, I believe, for every single vote. We're certainly going to fight for every single vote here in central Mississippi and throughout our state. You know, it's interesting. We were supposed to have a debate here tonight, and one of the things that I find very interesting is perhaps the Attorney General knew this, but wouldn't it have been great to be in the studio debating tonight talking about the fact that the leader of the Democrat Party, the leader of Jim Hood's party, actually decided that she finally crossed that threshold and decided she wanted to impeach President Trump yesterday. Long before any evidence came out, the fact of the matter is the Democrats nationally have decided that they want to usurp the will of the American people. They don't have any evidence that suggests that he did anything wrong. What they do have is they don't like his policies. They don't like the conservative policies that he has enacted at the federal level, which, by the way, those conservative policies are one of the main reasons that America is doing much better today economically than it has done during any day of the Obama administration. It's also the fact, one of the reasons that Mississippi is doing much better today. Mississippi's got the lowest unemployment rate of any time in our state's history. Mississippi has more people working today than at any time in our state's history. Mississippi actually has 88,000 more people working today than were working just 8 years ago. That's not happenstance, Byron. It's because conservative policies work. And the leader of Jim Hood's party, Nancy Pelosi, wants to undo all of that because she is a liberal, and I can only assume that he is as well.
The talk of impeachment of the president, are you hoping that the president comes and campaigns for you over the next couple of weeks?
We would love for the president to come campaign for us. We have been in contact with his people, and they have been very supportive. And I think you'll see a lot of efforts over the next 6 weeks. Just last night, we had the chairwoman of the Republican National Committee was in Mississippi campaigning for us. And that's one of the things that we as conservatives and we and Republicans can do. You know, I keep reading about this infighting amongst the Democrat nominees, and that no one amongst the Democrat nominees has decided who is for who. But, you know, it was great a couple weeks ago that all 8 Republican nominees for the 8 statewide elected officials actually went out and campaigned together, because we are a united party looking for more and more conservatives to get out in the polls. We know the more people that vote, the better it is for Republicans. The more people that vote, the better it is for conservatives all throughout Mississippi. And we're united to make sure that we get people to the polls in just 6 weeks.
I know when it comes to some of the issues like infrastructure, when it comes to teacher pay, and when it comes to Medicaid expansion, there are some differences within the party. There's some who want to see some expansion of Medicaid, some who want to talk about a gas tax, and you've been totally against that.
Right.
How do you bridge that gap, particularly like with you and Lieutenant and Delbert Hope and the Secretary of State? How will you bridge that gap if it becomes that you're in the next government?
Well, look, we as a party, as I mentioned earlier, we had 390,000 people vote in the Republican primary for governor this year. There is no way that 390,000 people are going to agree on every single issue. But Byron, I'll tell you what unites Republicans in this election is we all know that we cannot afford, we know we do not want, but we also know we cannot afford the liberal policy ideas of the party of Chuck Schumer and Nancy Pelosi and Jim Hood. That is what unites us as Republicans in Mississippi. And quite frankly, that's what unites us as Republicans across the country.
When we come back, we sit down with Attorney General Jim Hood. Welcome back. As the only statewide office holder who's a Democrat, Attorney General Jim Hood is looking to become the first Democratic governor in Mississippi in 15 years. 12 News' Gerald Harris sat down with Jim Hood at his campaign office in Jackson.
You have an opportunity to deliver your platform to voters, and for your campaign, you have been heavily focused on issues, workforce development, education. What are some of the top priorities for you?
Well, road build is certainly one of the priorities. The votes have been in the legislature to do that. You know, I'm fighting for working people. They've been kicked to the curb the past 16 years and hadn't had an opportunity to have any say in any of our economic development issues or a lot of matters as far as that goes. I want to make sure that we expand health care. That's $1 billion. That's 10,000 jobs. Both of those two, road bill and expansion of health care, that's about 18,000 jobs they would create in our state and help move our economy forward. Our rate of growth since 2009 has been 2%. Tennessee has grown at a rate of 23%, Arkansas at 13%, Alabama at 11%. And so what we're doing is not working our economic growth. Our kids are leaving our state at the highest rate of any other state in the country. On education, I want to see us do 4K education. It may take 4 years to get every kid, but I want to make sure every kid gets an opportunity to go to 4K education, and I want to pay our teachers Southeastern average. I want to fund our schools, and I want to do like we're doing in my 5 counties, and that is provide a tuition free at the community colleges for any student who wants to go who can't get a grant or scholarship otherwise. They got to keep a 2.5 average. But in my 5 counties, we've been doing it. Northeast Community College area began doing it recently. Tennessee's doing it statewide, and it only costs $6 million. So that is huge for job development. I want to make sure that working people get a break at the grocery store to cut the grocery tax. We'll make the cities whole because they receive a lot of money from the grocery tax. But I want to also make sure we clean up the legislature. That's the last and toughest issue, is to make them subject to the Open Records Act like everybody else. Stop them from taking campaign contributions during the legislative session. Stop them from taking corporate contributions and gifts. What's happened in our legislature, the reason we don't have money for schools and roads, I mean, I don't remember in my lifetime 500 bridges being out in our state. And what's happened is they gave our money away. I mean, they've given away $768 million a year. That's a $750 million. Our general fund budget is $6 billion. They've entered into billions of dollars of contracts with their buddies. All this is designed to get campaign contributions. And it's worked. I mean, Tate Reeves has probably raised $10 million now. I know he had at least $9 million. And you know, how do you do that? You sell people out, you give our money away, you enter into contracts with your buddies, they turn around and give you campaign contributions. And so we've got to clean up that legislature, and that's one of the things I want to make sure that I do as governor.
And let's quickly touch on a few issues that you mentioned. A road bill. Would you support a for lack of a better term, a 2-lane interstate, 4-lane interstate that goes from your neck of the woods in northeast Mississippi to the Gulf Coast? Something like that.
Yeah, you know, we need more 4-lane highways, because no manufacturing outfit is going to look at you now unless you got a 4-lane highway and a school nearby that the executives will want to send their kids to. That's the two fundamental building blocks of economic development. What we're proposing is just to fix what we've invested in. You know, it's somewhere in the neighborhood of $375 to $425 million a year that need to be expended to just keep up the investment that we have. That 1987 road bill, we built all these 4-lane highways, but if they're crumbling, it doesn't do us any good for economic development. For people to drive down the road, it tears their front ends of their vehicles. I mean, people are paying, you know, probably on average a little bit less than $1,000 a year just to keep their vehicles up due to our road deterioration. So we're talking about road deterioration. There are some areas where we definitely need to, for safety purposes, to open 4-lane highways, but you know, we've got to maintain what we have.
And on the healthcare, you're a proponent of taking federal dollars on the table to help ensure healthcare for working people here in Mississippi. Another coin that has worked in Louisiana recently was a drop in emergency room care, because attached to the emergency room was a urgent care facility. Would you support that in many of the areas here in Mississippi, to attach an urgent care facility to see, well, because some people go to the emergency room and don't need emergency care?
Absolutely. You know, there's $1 billion every year. For the past 5 years, Tate Reeves has turned it down. That is a Tate tax. That's $5 billion he's cost our state. But what that would do, if we accept that federal money, we're paying federal taxes, and if we don't take that $1 billion a year, that money's going to some other state, which has recently expanded. Many of those states have expanded. They let the hospitals pay the bed fee. It doesn't cost the taxpayers anything. That $1 billion would generate about $100 million more in tax revenue. In Louisiana, it generated $177 million. They get $1.8 billion a year. It has a huge economic impact, about $3 billion as it ripples through our system. It creates jobs. It covers 300,000 working people. If Tate Reeves runs around trying to claim it's welfare, well, that money never touches a poor person's hands. It goes straight to a medical clinic, the best paying jobs in my communities. And on Tate Reeves' watch, 5 hospitals have closed in Mississippi. 5 have been in bankruptcy, one of which is up in my neck of the woods, up around Amory. It was in bankruptcy, and it was a great hospital. In fact, in my hometown, my emergency room closed. It's been there all my life. It closed about 5 years ago on Tate Reeves' watch, and a young lady, 22 years old, recently had an asthma attack. She was pregnant and had a 1-year-old child. Her family rushes her to the hospital in the middle of the night, thinking the emergency room's open because the hospital's still open. It's not. They raced back just a mile to downtown Houston, Mississippi, got to the fire station. She died on the street of Houston, Mississippi. I mean, that's like third world country stuff. And put it in perspective, we had better emergency rural health care in 1950 when my grandfather practiced medicine than we have today in rural Mississippi. And that's insane when there's $1 billion the federal government will provide to us. And if you don't care from your heart about the 300,000 working people, then you ought to at least care about the economic impacts, and they're all positive to move our state forward and help our economy.
Thanks to Jim Hood and Tate Reeves. That's just part of the issues we covered. Much more with the candidates a week from tonight. We'll be right back. reminder, gubernatorial candidates Jim Hood and Tate Reeves will debate on October 10th at the University of Southern Mississippi. 12 News will host that debate in front of a live audience. I'll be moderating. The debate will start at 7 p.m. We do want to hear from you. What questions would you like for us to focus on and ask the candidates? Let us know by submitting questions to news@WJTV.com. We are your local election headquarters. Election Day is November 5th. But first, the fair and the cool new addition that arrives this coming Wednesday. We'll be right back. Welcome back. The State Fair gets underway in just a few days. The usual assortment of food, fun, and rides. But this year, there's a major new addition. I talked with the executive director about what's in store. We welcome the executive director of the Mississippi Fair Commission, Steve Hutton, to the program. Steve, and welcome.
Byron, thank you.
Talk about 160 years. You're going 13 days. The significance about being 160 years this fair.
Well, State Fair started a long time ago, obviously, for the purpose of agriculture and livestock. And if you think back 160 years, people were bringing their cattle and their goats and their sheep and pigs to the State Fair to win a blue ribbon. Well, over a course of time, someone said, hey, we've got all these people here, let's have some pony rides. Industrial Revolution occurs, those pony rides turn into merry-go-rounds, and you kind of see state fairs the way they occur today. But the roots are still there. We still have all those livestock shows. I didn't even know that when I took this job. We have tens of thousands of people that are behind the scenes in the livestock barns, showing their cows, showing their chickens, showing their goats. There's a lot to do at the State Fair other than just the rides.
Yeah, 13 days this year opposed to 12. There's significance in that too.
Once every 11 years, you would think that would happen every 7, but once every 11 years, Columbus Day falls the day after the fair. So we recognize that this year, and we wanted to expand the fair one additional day, so all the school children that are going to be off and all the people that are just off work that day can come to the fair that one extra day. We're going to treat it like a Saturday. We're going to open early and have a full fair all day. We have roughly 600,000 people that come to the fair each year. Weather depending, we want your weathermen to do the exact same thing they did last year and give us no precipitation. That would be very much appreciated, and we look for record crowds.
This year you're adding an ice skating rink. Explain the ice skating rink and what brought that in this year.
So for the first time in 60 years, we are going to have an ice skating rink inside the Mississippi Coliseum. So we're converting it to what we're calling the Ice Dome. 2 days ago, we started building the rink. It's a company that I've worked with before out of Miami, and they do temporary rinks all over the United States. So they come in, they set up an 8,000 square foot temporary floor. They use a solution that goes under the floor that goes below zero without freezing, and then we're able to add water, make ice, and you're able to skate inside the Coliseum wearing shorts and a t-shirt, and you don't get that opportunity often.
Now, is that part of the fair cost, the ice rink, or is that an additional cost?
The ice rink is a little bit more, so it's $10 to ice skate, but here's what we learned. When I did Christmas on Ice in Madison back in 2012, Mississippians, they last about 20 minutes on the ice before their ankles get a little tender. So what we've done is we've created an all-day wristband. You come in, you pay $10, you get a wristband, you can ride the rides, you can eat the food, you can skate, go back out, ride the rides, eat the food, come back in and skate all day long.
All right, so it's not a one-time event. You can go back and forth.
That's correct.
Talk about some food. I mean, everyone likes a turkey legs, or you like a funnel cake, or you like a biscuit. Anything new as far as food? We
do. We've got a couple of new vendors. People like the local vendors the best, we have found. So Penn's Chicken on a Stick is just a fan favorite of the fair. Malone's Taffy. They've been coming to the fair for over 100 years. But we've also got some national vendors that go from fair to fair to fair. And one gentleman is coming out of Ohio. It's his first time at the Mississippi Fair, and he has a product that he calls the Bacon Bomber. It is a combination of peanut butter and bacon wrapped in a batter. and then deep fried, and then covered with chocolate sauce and powdered sugar. You gonna try one?
That looks like the Krispy Kreme hamburger or something like that, you know.
We're looking forward to trying it.
I'm sure all the doctors around here will be happy when the fair is over.
I think they'll get a few cholesterol checks after the fair.
Exactly. Talk about security, and that's usually an issue that we always bring up. How are you dealing with security, and what can people do to expect to be safe when they either park their cars and also while they're at the fair?
Sure, I really do believe this. The safest 105 acres in Mississippi during that 13-day span is at the Mississippi Fairgrounds. We have over 200 either officers, paramedics, agents that are going to work the fair. We've already had 2 preliminary meetings, and we plan everything, Byron, from a scraped knee to a catastrophic event. And we plan on every contingency in between.
When should they go? How should they navigate the fair?
Sure, the earlier you can get there in the day, the better because of parking. So anytime you can park inside the gates of the fair, that's going to be beneficial. We have a fun guide. They can find it on the web. It's msstatefair.com, msstatefair.com, and they can look at the fun guide, look at all the times, when the ride's open. The ice rink will be open when the rides are open.
All right, sounds good.
Yeah.
Get ready for the fair. We're getting next week. Steve Hutton, thank you for joining us.
Thanks.
All right, and we'll be right back. Thanks to Tate Reeves, Jim Hood, and Steve Hutton for joining us. For Gerald Harris, I'm Byron Brown. Have a good week. We'll see you back here next Saturday.